One of the biggest things we have all learned today is that the world continually turns. And as it turns through successive generations, each generation gets tied together with common beliefs, ideals, and values. Those values come from what they learned from the preceding generation. They gather up the lessons learned and they try to recognize the mistakes their parents made. They have their own observations of what works and what doesn't, and they document those successes and failures and share them with the people of their generation. The lessons our children learn are not always the lessons we hoped we would pass on, but they learn from watching us. And the next generation is always formed by the lessons we taught them. And that group of people creates their own set of values and beliefs from all that they have seen or heard. If we go all the way back to the silent generation, which grew up in the world of the Great Depression, they watched as their parents could not find jobs, struggled for food, and fought to survive. And they learned that a sign of success was having a full pantry. We used to laugh at Grandma's cupboard stuffed so full of food and supplies it would last a decade. But that was the lesson she learned from watching her parents as she grew up. So when they got jobs, they worshiped them and they appreciated them. The jobs held huge value for them. And when they were asked to go off to war and fight to protect those jobs, keep their cupboards full, and make their families secure, they did it without question. They felt they owed that contribution. Their children, the baby boomers, grew up in the wake of all that prosperity following World War II. Jobs weren't rare, they were plentiful. Why would you treasure them? And they, as children, were left with different images of war. They saw these pictures. It's not that they didn't have ideals and values, but they watched their ideals and values get gunned down and shattered in the streets of Dallas, back hallways, and balconies. Is it any wonder that they would have a different view of violence and war? More skeptical and questioning than their parents when it came to being shipped off to different lands to fight for one's country. And their young years were spent in rebellion against everything their parents believed. And while they went through a period of dropping out and free love, they too had families to raise and children to provide for. But this time, they'd do it for themselves. So the baby boomers built Wall Street empires, monuments to themselves, and grew up in a world of excess. And their children watched the excesses. They also watched those same parents dedicate lives to building companies, empires, and excesses, only to have it ripped out from under them. Because those corporations downsized their parents, stripped many of them of their jobs, and took away retirement benefits after years and years of service and 60 to 80-hour work weeks. And their children watched, and lessons were learned. Are we really surprised that the Generation Xers watching all of this would find little need to contribute to the wealth of the company and to aid the massive corporations and go get a job just because their parents told them to? They weren't about to make the same mistakes as their parents. So we shouldn't be surprised that they hid out in basements, played video games, and seemed more interested in themselves than anything else. Hey, their parents were always at work. Who did they have other than themselves? Oh, the heck with it all. Give me the remote. Mom and Dad are still at work, but they'll be laid off soon. I'll just wait for them here. We taught them those lessons. And their children, seeing a total lack of cooperation and contribution from the Gen Xers, grew up thinking that life had to be about more than that. So the millennials thought we should care about the world, green issues, each other, social causes, and that we could accomplish all of this by collaboration. They were going to change the story. Are you surprised that they would turn to every conceivable piece of technology available and find new ways to connect with one another, discuss issues, and support causes? Hey, after all, you could accomplish all of these things from a few simple clicks at your fingertips. There are people who are upset about the generational changes, and usually the most criticism comes from the generation getting replaced. Baby boomers often aren't happy with the millennials. because they have figured out that by 2030, the millennials will outnumber them by 22 million. So we run around like Bill Gallagher saying, help me, the sky is falling. I presume the greatest generation who fought World War II thought the sky was falling when the baby boomers protested war. And I presume that the Wall Street baby boomers thought the sky was falling when their children hid out in the basement and wouldn't get a job. Funny how that works, isn't it? The truth is that life's a journey that will eventually transition all of us. And whether we like it or not, the world keeps on turning and each generation transitions from this to this. Now you know what all this generational fear is really about. The baby boomers, our original rebels, have gotten older, and they're really not happy about that because the millennials are pushing them aside, and the baby boomers' world today looks different from anything they ever expected.
Get your Motrin ready. Head out on a treadmill.
The heating pad is warming in case your herniated disc kills.
We're aging boomers but refuse to show it.
I just had implants and a tummy tuck.
A triple bypass and 2 knee replacements. Getting old really sucks. I just took Viagra. Both the kids are our age.
I'll go get some Merlot. Let's hope it won't inflame your prostate.
We're baby boomers, the original rebels. Used to smoke pot, but now we drink green tea. We tripped on acid, now we have acid reflux. We're in the AARP. We were spoiled, pushy wild, but now we're bored, tubby and mild. We used to get so high, now they call us bored, tubby, mild. Bored, tubby, mild. Boy, I'm exhausted.
Is it your heart? Are you having chest pains? Have you been taking your Plavix? Let me call the doctor. You sit there. I'll be right back. You just stay there.
So the world continues to turn. And don't be so shocked and surprised when each succeeding generation comes along and tries to figure out what their parents did wrong and how they can change the world. And the more we learn about their values, ideas, and beliefs, the better we are able to work together and build growing businesses that involve all generations. Today in real estate, we are asked to serve and work with the largest generational span ever in history. It's caused by the speed of change. But the more we learn about each other and just what makes us tick, the closer we may get to Rodney King's immortal words. Why can't we all just get along? As for me, like most of you in this class, I'm an aging baby boomer, and I'd like to still think that we are all standing together on a hillside. I'd like to believe that no matter which generation we're talking about, they're all trying to adjust and learn from the mistakes of the past, and each generation, in its own unique way, has a set of values and beliefs that they think will teach the world to sing.
Like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me.